Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me here. My name is Randy Atlas. I am a registered architect in Florida and also a PhD in criminology, which makes me America's only architect criminologist, which is different than being a criminal architect. By the way, there is a criminal architect. If you've read the news, there's that architect in New York City who is a serial killer who killed like 14 girls along the dunes there on Long Island. And the forensics, the CSI got caught up and he finally got arrested, and now they're going to go after him for the murder of these girls from 25 to 30 years ago. So there are criminal architects out there, but that's not me. There we go. And I published this book, which is sort of the leading textbook on CPTED, 21st Century Security in CPTED. I did bring one copy with me, so if someone would like to acquire that, I will autograph it for you. It will be a collector's item. All right. Warning, my sense of humor may hurt your feelings. I am the official voice of sarcasm and cynicism of CPTED. So if you hear that tone, it's because I am surrounded by incompetence. But for the grace of God, we just don't fall into a giant dark hole in the sky. I mean, you know, it is shocking how much pain and suffering happens unnecessarily, the mass shootings, the buildings that fall down, because of incompetence. The architect didn't design it well. The principals, that school shooting where the principals warned 3 times of that student that had a gun, and they didn't take the student aside and search him and search his locker, and then pulls out the gun and shoots his teacher. You know, I mean, there's no excuse for this kind of things that are happening. And when you look at threats to internal security, we have domestic violence, displacement of crime, the release of persons deprived of liberty, cyber crime, which is really big now, transnational crime, and corruption. So these are all the factors that play. There's a lot of variables of why we have our life environment, the situation here in Sao Paulo with the amount of crime. This morning's news, as I was getting ready to come here, there was 4 videos of people getting robbed on the streets, either from the cars or the motorcycles coming up and grabbing you, and 3 of the 4 were women getting attacked, which goes back to our previous discussion about how do we make the streets safe for, I say, children and women, because men are just, you know, what we are. Life today is a proverbial shouting match. CPTED involves listening to solving community problems. And as CPTED practitioners, part of the skills they teach us is to be good listeners, is to ask good questions, as we just heard from the previous presentation. How do we demand, respect, expect civility, and develop consensus if there are no consequences for your actions? So in the US, we're basically, in present time, note sarcasm, it's a free-for-all. There is no civility. There is no consequences for your actions. And then when you have consequences, they either say the police are overacting or they shot somebody even though he's walking around with a machete swinging at people. I mean, it's crazy world out there. Everyone is up in arms if you're an ist. Oh, you're a racist because, really? No. You're a sexist, an extremist, an anti-vaxxist, a narcissist, a socialist, an anarchist. As CPTED practitioners, our job is to be centrists in the middle. We understand there are forces to the right and to the left, and our job is to sort of figure out how to mediate in the middle to affect compromise, that unusual term. Why are we still arguing if the earth is flat or round? Oh, sorry. See? The forces of darkness are right at hand here. Thank you. Yes. You know, I mean, there are people, I swear to God, at school board meetings that are still that still think the earth is flat, that the vaccine was made up by, you know, Bill Gates, that, I mean, we are dealing with the insanity that we no longer reside on science and logic, but just strictly an emotional, how do I get my 5 minutes of fame on Facebook or TikTok? There are articles that are coming out about CPTED and target hardening, and they're just saying that they're calling it hostile architecture. Well, you have to make a priority. We'll relate it in San Paulo terms. Every street that I've driven around here for the last 3 days, all the mansions and businesses have a 10-foot wall, razor ribbon on top, electrical fence on top, and I even saw some classic old-style Havana SIPTED, which was broken glass embedded on top of the wall. Why do you think that is? Because clearly there's a fear factor of protecting those homes, those people, those businesses, and those persons. And so what is the alternative? If in fact there is real fear, then we have to do target hardening, unless we can somehow create a different dynamic of social activity. Can SIPTED address divergent social philosophies and approaches and support a holistic, inclusive approach? That is the key to SIPTED, which is looking at the big picture. And when I teach SIPTED, I do an online course, it's about looking at the big picture, the 10,000-foot view, before you get to the 100-foot view. I deal with, again, part of the incompetence I deal with is that people are just, it's me, and people walk around with their phones doing selfies all the time. We didn't have that 30, 40 years ago. The self-absorption and narcissism just wasn't available to everyone to basically broadcast as a podcaster, as a malevolent force spewing their views, not even based on logic, science, or reason. Too sarcastic? I heard a oh wow there. And support holistic, inclusive approaches, but controlling or influencing the social attitudes and perceptions is much more difficult than controlling the physical environment. And that goes right into that last presentation of first generation SIPTED. You know what? I can put a fence in. I can add a camera. I can put a door in that you'd have to blow up to get through. But to change someone's attitude from their addictiveness personality, their narcissism, their collective mental illness of, I'm going to say just the United States, I won't speak for the rest of the world, but I mean, when did we become a mentally ill country where every single mass shooter, including just recently last week, the guy who had shot 18 people in Maine, oh, he got fired from a job, he had mental issues, he wasn't happy. Really? I'm unhappy all the time. It's called being an adult. The last time I was happy when I was 11 years old. Call me effing crazy, but it's being an adult. It's being perpetually unhappy. It's called paying a mortgage, putting gas in your car, dealing with being sick from the airplane. Life isn't about being happy. How do you regulate bias, perception, and people's behaviors, actions, and attitudes? SIPTED can address behavioral issues, but not really mental health limitations. Now, Jerry was talking about how do we go about approaching that, but I mean, in the schools, that's especially important about doing the assessments. Is Johnny going to be a doctor or a mass serial killer? We don't know. We just don't know. And we don't have the science to figure it out. By the way, this presentation...
The needs of the many outweigh
the needs of the few.
Or the one.
That is the affirmation for SIPTED. How do we get return on investment? How do we get the needs of as many people, the big part of the bell curve, the 87.7%, not just the outliers, the people who whine and complain the most? Consensus building is a process involving good faith effort to meet the interests of all stakeholders and seek a unanimous agreement, easier said than done, including the right people and set expectations, assigning roles and responsibilities, engage in group problem solving, and reach agreement if that's even possible. Hold people to their commitments. So when I've gone in to do SIPTED assessments in communities, I've invited the naysayers and the police, and I make sure someone from the mayor's office is there, or the political structure, and especially the fire department, because they only have one word in the vocabulary. I don't know about South America, but in the United States, the fire marshal has power of God. When the fire marshal speaks, flames come out of their hands. Why? Because they have the power to use the N-word. No, not that N-word. No. I want to put this here. No. My driveway needs it. No. I need to do 10 stories. No. So if we involve the people who are the most difficult challenges and we get their buy-in that we need to get this interaction between the buildings, the street, and the people, then we start seeing a change in attitudes. When there's a consensus, everyone agrees on something. Building consensus is a critical skill for facilitators and consultants who help groups work together to address issues, meet objectives, and resolve problems. Disagreements can arise due to a variety of reasons, and it's essential to understand the reasons in order to build consensus. People disagree because they've not been clearly heard or understand the other person's viewpoint and the reasons for supporting the alternative view. I mean, what have you done for me lately? Wait a minute, wait for that Janet Jackson moment. Snap. If you're a Janet Jackson fan, what have you done for me lately? It's a top 40 song. Okay. Okay. You know, but that's where people's are. What are you doing for me? Why is this important to me? They have heard and understand, but they have different experiences or hold different values that result in preferring one alternative to the other. They have different value systems or experiences, which goes back into the second generation SIPTED of culture and threshold capacity. The disagreements is based on personality, past history with one another, and other factors that have nothing to do with their alternative views. It's the Hatfields versus McCoys. I own this real estate. I'm a landowner. You're just a renter. I'm an owner. Different perspectives gives that sense of power that you might have to exercise what kind of things you can provide. The advantage of consensus decisions is making a group decision for the majority of stakeholders, giving persons a sense of involvement. This is my neighborhood. This is my football team. This is my soccer team. This is the restaurant where I go to. This is where I get my haircut. This is my doctor's office. This is my gas station. It's that sense of community involvement and ownership, which is one of the basic principles of SIPTED, first generation of territoriality and boundary definition. The disadvantages of consensus include groupthink, which those with power leverage their position and agreeing to making bad decisions with the pretense it represents the majority. So if you have the golden rule, as the young people in the room here, if you ever heard your parents say, the golden rule, I have the gold, I make the rules. If you're living under my roof, you do what I say until you're 18, and then you can give me a Queen's wave goodbye. The power of consensus, however, is a key stage in opening up the discussion to allow everyone to share their feelings and needs and opinions. It's SIPTED 101, problem seeking before problem solving. And when I teach police officers, that's a big challenge because they go into immediately shoot, no shoot, put up a bigger fence, bigger camera, rather than why are people loitering and clustering here? Why is there drug trafficking here? Why is there prostitution here? Why is this neighborhood in such distress? Recognizing all the different things that are going on for people first is essential to finding a solution which suits everyone. And Jerry discussed that this morning about me teaching a room full of students and academics and other speakers and vendors is great, but we're not talking to the people who are sleeping on the sidewalk out there. We're not talking to the politicians who are squandering the money that instead of building affordable housing and daycare and the social services needed so that people aren't sleeping on the streets. Now, if they're choosing to sleep on the streets because they're street vampires, that's another story. But in the US, we have lots of social services that provide housing, that provide medical, that provide daycare, and there's still people that choose to sleep on the street. That's called being a camper or mental illness, in my opinion, as a criminologist. How to make a difference? We can alter high-impact crimes. And yes, I'm grabbing my 10 minutes of my my question time so I can get through the lion's share of this. I already cleared it with Macarena, so I'm just going for it. We can alter high-impact community crime by nurturing a sense of community. Getting consensus is critical, but not at the expense of erasing or canceling other people. The civilization of a community has to be an obligation to act like human beings. We've forgotten that. With connection, communication, cohesion, and a lost art known as civility. When did it become okay just to be rude and be so narcissistic and self-absorbed that I slam the door, that I'm not watching my neighbor's house anymore?
Tonight, Harry Smith has a close look at a neighborhood that hasn't had a new grocery store in 50 years and why it's already breaking barriers.
Waterloo, Iowa is on a top 10 list, has been for several years, rated among the worst places for Black Americans to live, a community that's long felt underserved. Developer Rodney Anderson believes that is soon to change.
This is a real grocery store.
This is a real grocery store. You know, real grocery store, real jobs, real people, and real hope.
A 28,000 square foot, $10 million plus project that includes literacy programs, after school activities, jobs and training for the formerly incarcerated. It's called All In.
It's a community center that just so happens to sell groceries.
All In stands in sharp contrast to the trend of stores closing in cities because of crime. Anderson vows that will not be a problem here.
If they see blight, they're going to do blighted things. If they see development, they see success, this is a community store, so the community shall protect it.
Self-protect.
Yes, self-protect.
That faith, that hope, drew the attention of Naira Jordan, who works for the social impact arm of American Family Insurance.
It's really important that we connect ourselves to the individuals in community. People in community that are closest to the issue are also the ones that are the innovators, the change makers that have the solutions.
As best as anyone can remember, it's more than 50 years since a new grocery was built near here.
What do you say to the naysayers?
Come shop. I say come shop.
Harry Smith, NBC News, Waterloo, Iowa.
The power of this little news story is that it can't be done. It can't be done. And yet, you know, we're clicking our heels 3 times. I want to go back to Kansas. It can be done. It can be done. But there has to be clear intention. There has to be infrastructure, like we talked about earlier. There has to be all of the different opportunities of how we create a sense of community. So in fact, that people want to participate and invest and make a difference. Can't we all just get along? The mission and challenging of SIPTED is to create a more welcoming nation, city, community, and neighborhood where everyone can belong. But be careful what you ask for. That also includes the street vampires, the homeless. And the difference between street vampires and homeless is the fact that is the issue of choice. I submit for your consideration. The people who are homeless because of need, they lost their home, they lost their job, they don't have the resources. Okay, that's where the social services come in. The people who are the parasites who come in there and are selling the windshield wipers at your intersections, the people who are breaking into the homes, the result that we're seeing that embassy level security up and down these streets of the homes and businesses with the 10-foot walls and the razor ribbon and the electric fences. Where does that come in? That's from a fear factor of what could happen because people don't feel safe. More than ever, finding points of connection, which again goes back to second generation SIPTED, and shared experiences are the key to creating strong supportive communities where we all can play a part in making sure everyone feels like they belong, with the exception of the criminal element. In the US, we are being plagued by organized retail theft crime right now, the flash mob robs. Now, I'm a social dancer, ballroom dancer, and I've done flash dances, you know, where people come to the mall and dance, and that's great. When 30, 40 people come swarm a store and clean it out, that's a flash mob rob. Well, Target just closed 9 stores because they said we can't afford the cost of doing business anymore. The stores, the big box stores, are afraid to make that investment because there's no consequences. People are not getting arrested. The stores are Walmart's telling their employees, the security guard, don't arrest, don't stop. It's not worth the hassle of a false arrest and going to court. So I'll sort of wrap it up by just saying that consensus is possible, but it's very challenging. It requires a special skill set. It's one of the things that makes SIPTED practitioners different than a security consultant. When I'm doing security design on a jail or a prison, it's about keeping someone in or keeping someone out, or a bank, or a vault, or an IT communication center. But that's very different than SIPTED, which is about asking the questions about how do we get you involved? How do we get you better? How do we make you mentally more stable so that your first reaction isn't to go buy a gun and hurt people? to participate in that effort. And consensus is possible, but it does require training, as Jerry very clearly brought out, and how we bring that training to police officers and to social workers and to urban planners and architects and the government powers to be can make a positive difference in making your community safer for people. Thank you.